My name is Janet Hamilton, and I just turned 62 last month. Tonight, at my son's lavish Christmas party, surrounded by the glitter of wealth, I never dreamed of something unbelievable happened. Michael, my successful son, who built a tech empire from nothing, hugged me close and whispered, "Enjoying the $6,000 a month, Mom." My heart stopped. Those words made no sense to me. For months, I've been working 2 jobs just to keep my lights on. But before I tell you what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe if you want more stories about family betrayal and healing. Life hasn't been easy since Frank, my husband, died in that construction accident 20 years ago. I was left with 2 children to raise on my own and barely enough insurance money to last us a year. Michael was just 14, and his sister Lily was 11. We moved from our comfortable suburban home to a small 2-bedroom apartment in a part of town where the rent was affordable on my waitress salary. Every morning, I get up at 4:30 to open the diner where I've worked for the past 18 years. By 3 in the afternoon, I head home for a quick shower and change before starting my evening job as a cleaning lady at the downtown office buildings. Weekends, I pick up extra shifts at the diner. It's exhausting, but that's what mothers do. Michael was always a special child. Even after his father died, he maintained perfect grades, took on paper routes, and helped me with Lily. While other kids his age were playing video games, Michael was learning computer programming from library books. He won a partial scholarship to college, and I worked extra shifts to cover what remained. Those years were especially tough, but seeing his determination made every sacrifice worthwhile. After college, Michael joined a tech startup. Within 5 years, he had started his own company, developing specialized software for financial institutions. His business exploded, and suddenly, my son was worth millions. He bought a beautiful house in the expensive part of town, drove luxury cars, and began moving in circles I could never imagine. That's when he met Alexandra. She comes from old money, the kind that's been in the same family for generations. Her father, Harold, runs a prestigious investment firm, and her mother, Victoria, sits on the boards of several cultural institutions. Alexandra graduated from an Ivy League university and worked at her father's firm, though I always suspected it was more for appearances than necessity. From our first meeting, I sensed Alexandra's discomfort around me. She was polite but distant, the way someone might be with the housekeeping staff at a hotel. She would smile without warmth and ask questions without interest in my answers. After they married 2 years ago, I saw Michael less and less. Our weekly Sunday dinners became monthly, then quarterly. When I called, Alexandra usually answered and explained that Michael was too busy to talk. My life continued much as before. My apartment building has grown shabbier over the years, with frequent plumbing problems and unreliable heating. My arthritis makes waitressing increasingly painful, but I can't afford to retire. My health insurance barely covers the basics, and the co-pays for my medications eat a large chunk of my monthly budget. When Michael's wedding invitation arrived, I spent months saving for a decent dress. When Lily had her second child, I could only send a small gift card. I've never complained to Michael about money. I never wanted him to feel burdened by his old mother. Last month, I received a beautiful, embossed invitation to Michael and Alexandra's Christmas party at their mansion. I was surprised and touched to be included. The invitation mentioned it would be an intimate gathering of 50 close friends and family. I hadn't seen their new home yet, as they'd moved after I'd missed their housewarming due to work commitments. That same week, I learned Alexandra was pregnant with their first child. My first grandchild. Despite my financial struggles, I immediately started setting aside a few dollars each week to buy something special for the baby. I may not be able to give my grandchild wealth, but I could give love and a meaningful gift that showed the child would always have a grandmother who cared. As the Christmas party approached, I grew increasingly nervous. What would I wear? What gift could I possibly bring that wouldn't look pitifully inadequate next to the expensive presents their wealthy friends would give? Most importantly, would I finally have a chance to reconnect with my son, who seemed to be drifting further from the boy I had raised? The day of the party arrived with a light snowfall that made the city look like a scene from a Christmas card. I had taken the entire day off from both jobs, a luxury I could ill afford, but necessary to prepare properly. I spent the morning washing and setting my hair the way the ladies at church had taught me. My hands, rough from years of work, were soaked in lotion, and my nails carefully filed and painted a modest pink. The dress I'd purchased was a simple navy blue cocktail dress I found on clearance at a department store. It wasn't designer, but it was elegant in its simplicity. I paired it with my only pair of heels, polished to hide their age, and costume jewelry that looked presentable if you didn't examine it too closely. The pearl earrings were my mother's, the only real jewelry I owned. For Michael and Alexandra's gift, I had chosen a beautiful silver picture frame with an antique finish. Inside, I placed a photo of Michael as a baby in his father's arms. It was one of the few family photos I had saved, and I thought it would be meaningful with their baby on the way. I wrapped it carefully in paper I'd saved from previous gifts I'd received, adding a ribbon I'd purchased specially. The taxi fare to their neighborhood cost nearly half a day's wages, but I didn't want to arrive by bus in my work clothes and then change. I wanted to arrive with dignity. As the taxi drove through increasingly affluent neighborhoods, my anxiety grew. When we finally pulled up to their address, I almost asked the driver to turn around. The house was more of a mansion than a home, with soaring columns at the entrance and a circular driveway where luxury cars were being valeted by young men in uniforms. Christmas lights outlined every architectural feature, and through the massive windows, I could see a towering Christmas tree that must have been at least 15 feet tall. I paid the taxi driver and added a small tip, then gathered my courage, along with my purse and gift. At the door, a man in formal attire asked for my name and checked it against a list. His eyebrows raised slightly when I gave it, which made me wonder what he had been told about Michael's mother. The entrance hall was breathtaking, with a crystal chandelier and marble flooring. Staff circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres that looked too artistic to eat. Guests in designer clothing chatted in small groups, their jewelry catching the light with every gesture. I had never felt more out of place. "Mom," Michael's voice cut through my panic, and suddenly he was there, handsome, in an expertly tailored suit, his father's smile lighting up his face. He embraced me warmly. "I'm so glad you made it. Let me take your coat." He handed my worn wool coat to a waiting attendant and guided me further into the party. "You look beautiful, Mom," he said, though his eyes had a distracted quality that suggested he was mentally juggling a dozen other concerns. "Your home is amazing," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic rather than overwhelmed. "You've done so well for yourself." "Thanks to the foundation you gave me," he replied, and for a moment I saw my boy again, beneath the polished exterior. Come meet some friends. Alexandra is around somewhere with her parents. Michael introduced me to several couples, most of whom were business associates. They were polite and seemed genuinely interested when Michael proudly told them I had worked 2 jobs to put him through college. One man, David, was particularly kind, asking about my work at the diner and sharing that his mother had done similar work. Janet, there you are. Alexandra's voice was cool as she approached, champagne flute in hand. She air-kissed my cheek, careful not to make actual contact. At 5 months pregnant, she barely showed her slender frame, draped in a designer maternity dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Alexandra, you look radiant, I said sincerely. Whatever my feelings about her, she was carrying my grandchild. Thank you, she replied with a practiced smile. Mother and Daddy are eager to see you. It's been what a year since the wedding. She guided me away from Michael, who had been pulled into a conversation with some men in expensive suits. I followed Alexandra to where her parents stood by the fireplace, a portrait of old money privilege. Mrs. Hamilton has arrived, Alexandra announced, as if I were a package delivery. Harold Blackwell, tall and distinguished, with silver hair, extended his hand. Janet, good to see you again. Enjoying the party? Yes, thank you. Your daughter and my son have a beautiful home. Victoria Blackwell. Alexandra's mother assessed me from head to toe. That's a lovely dress, Janet. Is it new? Yes, I bought it for the occasion, I replied, fighting the urge to explain it was on sale. How quaint, she said. I always tell Alexandra there's something refreshing about simplicity. Throughout the next hour, Alexandra introduced me to various friends and family members, always with the same preface. This is Michael's mother, not my mother-in-law, or even Janet, just Michael's mother, as if my only identity was in relation to my son's success. I maintained my smile and dignity, making pleasant conversation and deflecting subtle jabs about my background. Inside, though, I was counting the hours until I could leave without seeming rude. The elegant surroundings only emphasized how far removed Michael's new life was from the one we had shared and from my current reality. Dinner was announced by the gentle chime of a bell, and guests began moving toward a massive dining room dominated by a table that could easily seat 30. Crystal glasses sparkled under the light of another chandelier, and fine china was arranged with military precision. Each place setting included multiple forks, knives, and spoons, whose specific purposes were a mystery to me. I was seated between David, the kind man I'd met earlier, and an older woman introduced as Alexandra's godmother. Across from me were Harold and Victoria, while Michael and Alexandra presided at opposite ends of the long table. The distance seemed symbolic of something I couldn't quite name. As the first course was served, a delicate seafood creation I didn't recognize, I carefully watched others to determine which utensil to use. Victoria noticed my hesitation. Outside in Janet, she said with a condescending smile. The silverware is arranged in order of use. Surely you've attended formal dinners before. Not many, I admitted, refusing to be embarrassed. At the diner, we're more focused on getting food to hungry people than on which fork they use. David chuckled appreciatively, but Victoria's smile tightened. Yes, well, different worlds. As the meal progressed through multiple courses, the conversation flowed around business ventures, vacation properties, and people whose names I didn't recognize. I ate quietly, savoring the exquisite food while trying to avoid any social missteps. So Janet, Alexandra's mother, eventually turned her attention to me. Michael tells us you're still working at that little restaurant. Wouldn't you rather retire now that your son is so successful? Before I could answer, Alexandra interjected. Mother, not everyone knows what to do with free time. Some people define themselves by their work. I enjoy keeping busy, I said diplomatically. And my customers at the diner have become like family over the years. How sweet, Victoria replied. Though I would think your actual family might take priority now, especially with a grandchild on the way. Michael cleared his throat. Mom has always been the hardest worker I know. It's where I learned my work ethic. And it served you well, Harold nodded. Though eventually one must learn to delegate. No successful person does everything themselves. I noticed Michael's jaw tighten slightly. Some tasks shouldn't be delegated. Speaking of which, I should check if the payments went through for that new acquisition. Darling, not at dinner, Alexandra chided. It's important, Michael insisted, pulling out his phone. The transfer should have completed today. Alexandra turned to her father. Michael's been stressed about this deal for weeks. 8 figures, potentially 9, if the projections are accurate. I remember my first major acquisition, Harold reminisced. The stress is normal, but once you've done a few, you realize the world doesn't end if there are complications. I watched my son frowning at his phone and felt a pang. This was not the relaxed family Christmas I had imagined. Michael had always been ambitious, but there was a new tension in him I didn't recognize. Janet, tell us about Michael as a child, someone asked, and I brightened. He was always so creative. Even with limited resources, he would build the most amazing things. One Christmas, when money was particularly tight, he programmed a special video game just for his sister, because we couldn't afford to buy her the one she wanted. Alexandra interrupted. Speaking of gifts, wait until you see what Michael got me this year. He's terrible at keeping secrets. The conversation shifted my story forgotten. Throughout the rest of the meal, I noticed Michael checking his phone repeatedly, his expression growing increasingly concerned. Alexandra, meanwhile, kept directing conversation toward topics that highlighted her family's connections and wealth. Janet is so lucky, Victoria commented at one point, to have raised a son who became so successful. It must be like winning the lottery. I'm proud of Michael because he's kind and hardworking, I replied. His financial success is secondary to the man he's become. Michael looked up at that strange expression crossing his face. For a moment, I thought I saw guilt in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a smile that didn't quite reach them. Mom gave up everything for me and Lily, he said. Any success I have is built on her sacrifice. Alexandra rolled her eyes slightly. Michael loves his rags to riches narrative. But let's be honest, darling, your real success came after you connected with the right people through my father. The table went momentarily silent. Michael's phone rang, and he excused himself to take the call. As he walked away, I noticed the tension in his shoulders. Something wasn't right, and it wasn't just dinner conversation. After dinner, everyone moved to the grand living room for the gift exchange. The magnificent Christmas tree was surrounded by beautifully wrapped packages, many with designer labels attached to the ribbons. I clutched my small gift, suddenly embarrassed by its modest wrapping. Alexandra was in her element, distributing expensive gifts to her family members with flourish. Her parents received matching Rolex watches, her brother a set of keys to what was apparently a new sports car parked outside. The exclamations of delight and displays of wealth made me increasingly uncomfortable. I sat quietly on the edge of a plush sofa, watching as Michael returned from his phone call, his expression troubled. He accepted a glass of scotch from a passing server and drank half of it in one swallow. Our eyes met across the room, and he made his way over to me. "Everything okay?" I asked as he sat beside me. "Just business complications," he said, but his tone suggested more. He finished his drink and set the glass down. "I'm glad you're here, Mom. We don't see enough of each other these days." "I understand you're busy," I said, patting his hand. "Your life is full now." "Too full of the wrong things, maybe," he muttered, then straightened as Alexandra approached. "Darling, we're waiting for you to give Janet her gift," she said, her smile tight. Michael nodded and stood pulling me gently to my feet. He embraced me, and for a moment I was reminded of when he was just a boy, seeking comfort after a bad dream. Then he whispered in my ear words that made my blood run cold. "Enjoying the $6,000 a month, Mom." I pulled back, confusion washing over me. "What?" Michael's brow furrowed. "The monthly transfers. Have they been enough?" I stared at him, completely bewildered. "Michael, what transfers? I'm working 2 jobs to make ends meet." The room had gone quiet, guests sensing the sudden tension. Michael's face drained of color. "What are you talking about? I've been sending you $6,000 every month for the past year." Alexandra stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Michael, this isn't the time." But Michael's attention was fixed entirely on me. "Mom, I set up automatic transfers after I found out about your second job. You shouldn't have to clean offices at your age." "I've never received any money from you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not a penny." Alexandra's face flushed. She's clearly confused. Maybe she forgot or doesn't check her accounts. "I check my account every day," I replied, finding my voice. "I count every dollar. Trust me." I would have noticed an extra $6,000. Michael turned to Alexandra, suspicion dawning on his face. "You handled setting up those transfers. You said it was all taken care of." A tense silence fell over the room. Alexandra reached for her water glass, taking a sip to buy time. "There must be some misunderstanding with the bank." "Show me the transfer receipts," Michael demanded, his voice now hard. Alexandra's hand trembled, causing her to choke slightly on her water. Harold stepped forward. "Michael, this is hardly appropriate conversation for a Christmas gathering." "No," Michael said firmly. "I want to know why my mother is still working 2 jobs when I've been transferring money that would allow her to retire comfortably." Alexandra dabbed at her mouth with a napkin, recovering her composure. "Perhaps this isn't the venue for financial discussions." It became the venue the moment I discovered my mother hasn't received the money I've been sending her, Michael replied, his voice rising. "Money that appears to have gone somewhere else." All eyes were on Alexandra now. She straightened, adjusting her designer dress. "I thought we agreed that supporting your mother indefinitely wasn't in our family's best interest." The words hung in the air like a slap. I felt my face burn with humiliation as guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Michael stared at his wife in disbelief. "You decided not to send the money without telling me." Alexandra raised her chin. "I was protecting our future. Your mother is perfectly capable of supporting herself. She's been doing it for years. I'm 62 years old with arthritis and no retirement savings," I said quietly. "I work 16-hour days and still can barely afford my medications." Michael's face transformed with a fury I had never seen before. "You've been stealing from my mother," Alexandra scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. It's our money, and I made an executive decision about its allocation." That's when I realized the full extent of what had happened. My son had tried to help me to ease my burden in my later years, and his wife had deliberately prevented it while allowing me to struggle. The betrayal was breathtaking. "I don't understand," I said, finding my voice again. "Michael, you never mentioned sending me money. I've been calling you for months about my increased rent, about the medical bills. I left messages." Michael's expression shifted from anger to confusion. "Messages, Mom. I never got any messages from you. I've been worried because you stopped calling." Alexandra's face had gone pale, but she maintained her composure. "This is ridiculous. Your mother is clearly trying to create drama and turn you against me. The only drama here is the one you've created," Michael replied, his voice dangerously quiet. He turned to me. "Mom, I've been sending emails too, checking on you, asking why you never call anymore." "I never received any emails from you," I said, my heart breaking at the lost connection. "I thought you were too busy for me now." Michael pulled out his phone, scrolled through his sent emails, and turned the screen toward me. There were dozens of messages sent to my email address over the past year, all marked as read. "I never saw these," I whispered. Michael turned to Alexandra. "Did you hack into my mother's email account?" Harold stepped forward. "Now, Michael, that's a serious accusation." "Is it?" Michael countered. "Because someone read these emails, and it wasn't my mother." He turned back to Alexandra. "What else have you done? Did you intercept her calls too?" Alexandra's composure finally cracked. "You were sending her an obscene amount of money that should be invested for our child's future, not wasted on someone who never learned to manage her finances properly." Gasps echoed around the room. Even Victoria looked shocked at her daughter's outburst. "My financial struggles aren't due to mismanagement," I said calmly. "They're because I spent everything to raise my children alone after their father died. Because I paid for Michael's education instead of my retirement. Because I make minimum wage plus tips, and rent in this city keeps rising." "Exactly," Alexandra snapped. "Poor decisions. You should have remarried or gotten a better job. Why should we subsidize your failure to plan?" Michael's voice was ice cold. "Alexandra, give me your phone." "What? No. Give me the phone or I'll call the bank right now and have them trace exactly where those transfers went." After a tense standoff, Alexandra reluctantly handed over her phone. Michael knew her passcode and quickly navigated through it. His expression darkened further. "You redirected the transfers to our joint savings account," he said in disbelief. "And you've been deleting my mother's voice messages and emails, then responding as me to tell her I'm too busy to talk." He looked up, eyes blazing. "You've been impersonating me to my own mother." Alexandra's father cleared his throat. "Michael, I'm sure Alexandra had good intentions. Financial prudence is important in a marriage. Stealing from my mother and lying to me for a year isn't financial prudence," Michael retorted. "It's fraud." "It's not fraud when it's between husband and wife," Victoria interjected. Alexandra was just being practical. I stood straighter, finding strength in the face of their callousness. "May I ask, Alexandra, what did you do with the $72,000 meant for me this past year?" Alexandra flushed. "It went into our savings for the baby." Michael scrolled further through her phone. "That's not what these credit card statements show. Designer clothes, spa, weekends, jewelry." He stopped, looking up in shock. "You bought a $70,000 watch last month." "It was an investment piece," Alexandra defended. "While my mother worked night shifts, cleaning toilets," Michael's voice broke. "At 62 years old, with arthritis." I placed my hand gently on Michael's arm. "There's more," I said quietly. 3 months ago, Alexandra asked me to sign some papers. She said they were insurance documents You wanted me to have Michael. I trusted her and signed without reading carefully. Michael turned to me, dread in his eyes. What papers, Mom? I don't know exactly. There were many pages. She just pointed where to sign. David, the kind man who had sat beside me at dinner, stepped forward. I'm an attorney, Michael. I'd be happy to look into this for your mother. Alexandra's face had lost all color now. Harold moved protectively toward his daughter. This has gone far enough. Alexandra may have exercised poor judgment, but she was thinking of her family's future. I am her family, I said firmly. Or at least, I thought I was. Michael was still processing the revelation. All this time, Mom, you thought I had abandoned you, that I didn't care you were struggling. Tears filled my eyes. I never thought you didn't care. I just thought you were busy with your new life. I didn't want to be a burden. You could never be a burden, Michael said fiercely. You're my mother. Alexandra attempted to regain control. This is all being blown out of proportion. It's Christmas, for heaven's sake. Can we discuss this privately another time? No, Michael said definitively. We're going to resolve this now. He turned to the room at large. I apologize to our guests, but I need to speak privately with my family. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. He guided me toward his study, gesturing for Alexandra and her parents to follow. David the attorney came as well at Michael's request. As we left the room, I caught glimpses of shocked faces and heard the immediate buzz of whispered conversations. The Christmas party was effectively over, but the real drama was just beginning. In Michael's wood-paneled study, the confrontation continued. Alexandra sat rigidly in a leather chair, her parents standing protectively behind her. Michael paced the room occasionally, stopping to examine documents on his computer or phone. I've been looking at our accounts, he said finally. Every month, $6,000 was transferred from our joint account to another account I don't recognize. Alexandra stared at the carpet. It's a personal account I set up. In your name only, Michael confirmed, looking at his screen. And from there, the money went to luxury retailers, spas, and designer boutiques. Harold cleared his throat. Alexandra has certain standards to maintain as your wife. Image is important in your circles. Not at the expense of my mother's well-being, Michael shot back. I sat quietly, still processing the magnitude of the deception. All those months of struggling, of choosing between medication and heat, of working until my joints screamed with pain, while my daughter-in-law spent money meant for me on luxury items. What about the papers my mother signed? Michael asked, turning to Alexandra. Her silence was damning. David spoke up. May I? He asked, gesturing to Michael's computer. After a few minutes of searching, he looked up grimly. I found copies in her email. They appear to be property transfer documents. Janet, do you own a small house outside the city? I nodded. Frank and I bought it years ago. After he died, I couldn't afford to live there, so I've been renting it out. The income barely covers the mortgage, but I've kept it for sentimental reasons. David nodded. According to these documents, you've transferred ownership to Alexandra. The room went silent. Michael's face drained of color. You stole my mother's house, he whispered. Alexandra finally looked up. It was a terrible investment, a money pit. I was doing her a favor, taking it off her hands. She signed willingly. Under false pretenses, I said, finding my voice. You told me they were insurance documents from Michael. David examined the papers more closely. This is serious, Michael. This constitutes fraud and elder abuse. Harold stepped forward. Now wait just a minute. Those are extremely serious allegations. With extremely solid evidence, David countered. I'd be happy to represent Janet in pursuing this matter legally. I watched the panic spread across Alexandra's face and felt a strange calm settle over me. The truth was out. The months of hardship, of feeling forgotten by my son, had not been Michael's doing, but the result of deliberate deception by someone who should have been family. "I don't want to press charges," I said quietly. Everyone turned to me in surprise. "What I want is to understand why. Alexandra, I welcomed you into our family. I never asked Michael for money. I never interfered in your marriage. Why would you do this?" Alexandra's composure crumbled entirely. "You don't belong in our world," she said, her voice breaking. "You with your waitress uniform and your shabby apartment. Do you know how it looks when Michael's business associates meet his mother and discover she's serving coffee for tips? It diminishes him. It diminishes us." The cruelty of her words hung in the air. Michael looked at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. "The only thing diminishing anyone here is your behavior," he said coldly. "My mother worked 2 jobs to give me opportunities. I'm proud of her, not ashamed." Victoria attempted to salvage the situation. "Alexandra meant well. She just wants your family to present a certain image. Surely you understand." "What I understand," Michael replied, "is that my wife has been stealing from my mother, impersonating me, and committing fraud, all while allowing my mother to believe I had abandoned her." I stood up, my decision made. "It's Christmas," I said firmly. "Whatever happens next can wait until after the holidays. For now, I'd like to give my son and daughter-in-law their gift." I retrieved the small package I had brought and handed it to Michael. He unwrapped it slowly, revealing the silver frame with the photo of him as a baby in his father's arms. "It's one of the few photos I have of your father holding you," I explained. "I thought with the baby coming, you might want this piece of your history." Michael stared at the photo, tears filling his eyes. "Mom, I don't deserve this after what's happened." "You didn't know," I said simply. "And your father would be so proud of the man you've become. Not because of your success, but because of your heart." Alexandra looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Her parents shifted uncomfortably. "I should go," I said, suddenly exhausted by the emotional turmoil. "No," Michael insisted. "You're staying here tonight. We have plenty of room and we have a lot to fix." He turned to Alexandra and her parents. "I think it would be best if you went to your parents' house tonight, Alexandra. I need time to think about what happens next." Harold began to protest, but Alexandra stopped him. For the first time that evening, she looked genuinely remorseful. "He's right, Daddy. I'll go with you tonight." She turned to me. "Janet, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far." I nodded, not yet ready to offer forgiveness, but acknowledging her apology. As they left to gather Alexandra's things, Michael turned to me. "I'm going to fix this, Mom. All of it. I promise." I smiled tiredly. "I know you will. You always were good at fixing things." As the night drew to a close, I found myself in a guest bedroom larger than my entire apartment, surrounded by luxury, but comforted most by the knowledge that the distance I had felt from my son had been an illusion. Our connection remained strong, despite all attempts to sever it. 6 months have passed since that fateful Christmas night, and my life has transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The morning after the party, Michael immediately transferred a significant sum into my bank account and set up a proper trust with me as the sole beneficiary. David, who has become a dear friend, helped me regain ownership of my small house and ensured all legal matters were properly handled. Michael and Alexandra are separated, though not yet divorced. The revelations at the Christmas party were just the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Michael discovered numerous other deceptions, including investments Alexandra had sabotaged because they didn't align with her family's interests. The trust between them was irrevocably damaged, but they are attempting to maintain civility for the sake of their child. I no longer work at the diner or clean offices at night. Instead, I've moved into a lovely apartment just 10 minutes from Michael's home. My arthritis is much improved with proper medical care, and I've even started taking art classes, something I've wanted to do for decades, but never had the time or resources for. In April, my first grandchild was born, a beautiful baby girl named Eliza. Alexandra initially refused to let me see her, but Michael was firm about my place in their daughter's life. The first time I held Eliza in my arms, I felt a healing begin that I hadn't even known I needed. Gradually, Alexandra and I have established a cautious relationship. The birth of her daughter seemed to soften something in her, and while we'll never be close, there is a newfound respect between us. She has apologized multiple times for her actions, and I believe she is genuinely working to become a better person. Harold and Victoria remain distant, embarrassed by their daughter's behavior and their own complicity in defending it. They send expensive gifts to Eliza, but rarely visit. Michael says they're struggling with the damage to their reputation in their social circles after word of Alexandra's actions spread. As for Michael, our relationship has been restored and strengthened. We have dinner together several times a week, and he often brings work to my apartment just to sit with me while I paint or read. He says he's learning what truly matters in life, a lesson he had forgotten in the pursuit of wealth and status. The money is nice, I won't deny that. Being able to buy groceries without checking prices, to see doctors when I need to help Lily with her children's education, these are blessings I never expected to have. But the real wealth in my life is the restored relationship with my son and the knowledge that material possessions mean nothing without love and integrity. Alexandra once asked me how I could forgive her after what she did. I told her that holding on to anger only poisons your own heart. Forgiveness isn't about excusing wrong actions. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of hatred. It took me time to reach that understanding, but now that I have, I feel lighter than I have in years. Last week, we celebrated Christmas again, a small family gathering at Michael's house. Alexandra was there with Eliza, as were Lily and her children. As I watched my family together, laughing and sharing stories, I reflected on how much had changed in a year. The painful revelations of last Christmas had ultimately led to healing and truth, to boundaries and respect. When Michael handed me my gift, a beautiful art easel, for my new hobby, he hugged me close and whispered, "Thank you for never giving up on me, Mom." That moment was worth more than all the money in the world. Life has taught me that our greatest wounds often become our greatest opportunities for growth. The betrayal I experienced led to a deeper connection with my son and a newfound appreciation for my own worth. It taught me that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to demand respect, and to rebuild what was broken. What about you? Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted? How did you find the strength to move forward? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to hear that healing is always possible, even after the deepest wounds. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most valuable gift we can give ourselves is the courage to speak our truth.